found disability interesting.
Derek can't communicate nonverbal with cerebral palsy.
When I met Derek, I sat in the class with him and provided communication support.
Facilitators were doing this thinking they were giving people the ability to be able to communicate.
She looked at Derek and said, "Do you want me to tell you?"
She said, yes, we have made love.
Then he said, I've dreamed about this.
She was having conversations with herself.
Anna is a pathological liar and narcissistic.
I'm not guilty of a crime.
So today I'm going to be talking about one of the most disturbing documentaries that I've saw, period. And this serves as your trigger warning because this one is going to be quite a doozy. This girl a mess, y'all. Hi guys, welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you've been around here a while. I'm Kendra. This is Kendra Creates. This is my space where I share my life with you guys, and I also talk about wild and crazy things on the internet and beyond. So if that stuff sounds good to you, then make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Also, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up while you are at it. So today, we are going to be talking about a documentary that I watched on Netflix. I wouldn't say that I had the pleasure of watching it because it was for surely a hard watch. And trigger warning for everything, like seriously. This is a very sensitive subject, a very wild topic in general. The name of the film is called Tell Them You Love Me. And so this is your warning. This is for essay type stuff. So if you are not in the headspace to hear about any of that, please join me on my next video, which I am sure will be of a more lighter nature. So, and this is also going to have like spoilers. I'm going to talk about what the movie is about, like what happened and everything. So if you want to watch the movie first and then come back to like watch my take on it and everything, please be sure to, save it for later. But here we go. We are about to get into it. So the film documents the relationship that began as a professional relationship between Anne Stubblefield, who is a Rutgers University professor. So she is, great in her field. She is an esteemed colleague and, by all accounts, a great teacher. She also served as a disabilities advocate, and she professionally spoke at different meetings, and she had a lot of information to give on the topic. So the professional relationship existed between her and Derek Johnson, and he is an older man who has lived all his life being nonverbal and also having cerebral palsy. Okay. So Derek's brother, John, and I'm looking down because I don't remember these people's names. Derek's brother, John, goes to Rutgers. He's in a doctoral program, and Anna Stubblefield is his professor. So one day during class, he is shown a film, and the film is about this method called facilitated communication. So it is giving a voice to the voiceless. So basically, it serves as a way for those who are nonverbal to communicate. And the way that it works is that the nonverbal person is set up at a keyboard or some other kind of, writing device or something. And someone sits next to them and they prop their arm up or their hand up, or they're helping them in some type of way type out words or things, or they're shown pictures and they point to them or whatever. So some way to communicate for those who had traditionally been known not to be communicative. So he's in class, he sees this film that his professor shows, and he thinks like, oh my gosh, this might be a good thing for my brother. Like maybe my brother could be able to communicate if he was able to have someone to facilitate his communication. And as an aside, facilitated communication is controversial. And I am going to give a little information on why that is.
Facilitated communication, also referred to as FC, assisted typing, or supported typing, is a widely scientifically discredited method used to assist people with communication disabilities. The practice typically involves a facilitator physically supporting a person with disabilities as they type on a keyboard or point to letters and pictures in an effort to help them communicate. According to a position statement by the American Speech Language Hearing Association, there is no scientific evidence of the validity of FC, citing extensive evidence that suggests messages that emerge from using this technique are from the facilitator, not the person with the disability. In addition to ASHA, the American Psychological Association and the Association of Science and Autism Treatment are among the organizations that have rejected the practice.
Okay, so after he meets with his professor and he discusses his brother with her and his background and his needs and everything, he's like, well, how can my brother get, facilitated communication? How can this occur? And she says, oh, she recommended someplace. I forget. I think it was another university in the area. But she says, oh, that's going to be really expensive. So she volunteers her services to facilitate communication with him. And his brother is like, oh my gosh, you are such an angel. And this story seems to be very innocuous. It seems to be very, the things that they write about in the movies, like, oh my gosh, people doing good deeds. But we're going to get into where the trouble lies, okay? So she begins facilitating the communication, and it seems as if Derek is making strides in his communication. And we are like, oh my gosh, he really can understand things. Like all this time, we thought that, he wasn't able to really have any cognitive abilities. And here he is, writing like sentences out to people. And it got to the point where they decided, or shall I say, he decided that he wanted to be a writer. He wanted to enroll in a class. Like, you're like, oh, okay, he doing big things. So he enrolls in the class. And this is a little part of the movie where I was confused at. And they never really even elaborated later on in the movie when things got a little bit serious and there was a trial. Yes, we're going to get to that though. So he is using facilitated communication with Anna during the class, because sometimes he'll be like, oh, type his response, and she'll raise the hand and she'll read the response to the professor, and everything seems all good and fine and dandy. And then there comes a point in time where he has to like write a paper. So for that part of the class, he was given, I guess you could say like a student. Well, he was given accommodations. So he had another student, like just a third party person, come in and help him be the facilitated communication portion. And they said that this student did not take that class, had never taken that class, had no knowledge of the reading materials or anything. And it was a well formulated paper. And so that's the part where I got confused on, because I was like, if he's really not communicating, then how could that paper have been written? But we're going to get to that in a moment. So just bear with me. So everything's all good. Derek is communicating. Him and Anna are spending a lot of time together. And eventually, she falls in love with him. And you're like, she did what? Yes, she did. And she was married at the time. Crazy, right? Yes. But we're not done yet. We're not done at all. She actually sits Derek's mom down with Derek's brother and her one day and tells them that. And not only does she tell them that they're quote unquote in love, that they've also been intimate. And I'm using code words, but it's really not intimacy at all. It's for sure SA. So everyone is like confused at this point. Like, could you imagine, raising your child from birth who is nonverbal, needs around the clock care, has to wear a diaper? And you mean to tell me that now he can consent to being intimate with someone and they love each other? So eventually, his mom is like, y'all are not going to see each other anymore. Do you blame her? And she's ignoring the lady's phone call because the lady is calling her trying to see him. And the mom goes to the authorities. The authorities do an investigation. And in fact, they have a whole entire conversation on the phone, and the police have the phones tapped. And eventually, they arrest her. And there is a trial. And she is found guilty of SA in 2015. She was convicted and sentenced to 12 years. Now, that conviction was overturned in 2017 on a technicality after an appeal because the court dismissed testimony related to facilitated communication. She accepted a plea for a lesser charge, and that was it. She served 2 years for basically harming someone with a disability. And I found such utter disgust with her throughout this entire documentary because she had a smile on her face. It was a smile, it was a smirk. She talked about it so lovingly, like they had a real, true connection and relationship. And they even interviewed her mom. And her mom was 100% on her side. And I feel like the crazy part of it all is even if you believe your child, which I don't know how you could believe them, but if you believe your child, you still have to, in the back of your mind, think that something is wrong with that whole entire situation. You have to think that she was ethically wrong in that situation. She was in a position of power over someone, and she entered into a romantic relationship with that person. I'm saying this is if you believe it, right? That right there is unethical and non-moral, and you should not do that. Right? Right. I know I'm right. And so I hated it when I looked at it and I saw the look on her face. It was such a look of a smile, like a smirk, like she knows she got away with it. And it was nothing that anyone could do. It was nothing that anyone could do. And I was so convinced by two things, and I'm going to tell you, and it's going to be sickening. It's going to be sickening. So just, if you're already not disturbed, be prepared. I warned you. So Derek's brother talked about that one day he was helping him change his clothes. And he looked at his back, and I guess he saw like bruising or markings or something like going across his back. And he said that he would go to like this little program or something during the day, I guess for people with disabilities, and he contacted them to get more information, like had he fallen down, did somebody hurt him, and they were like, no, nothing happened. So he always wondered what caused that or whatever. And so once he heard the testimony and all the facts came out and everything, he made the statement of, she did that. Anna did that. Anna went into great detail about how they engaged in relations, about how a yoga mat was laid down, and yeah, I'm not gonna go into further detail about that. Holy, this is taking a lot out of me, y'all. But yeah. And then the second thing is his mom talks about how now she catches him, self pleasuring. And she's like, he never did that before Anna. And it's just like, how can you do that to someone and change how they operate in the world, And there are so many questions and so many issues that arise out of this whole documentary. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because it is freaking nuts, okay? I'm going to get there, but let me just take a little breather and calm down for a minute. So the first issue that arises, of course, is consent. I myself have worked in higher education my entire career, and I often have watched so many like videos and attended so many trainings and things geared towards students in regard to consent. And if it is not a verbal yes, it's not consent. We're not talking about head nods. We're not talking about shoulder shrugs. We're talking about the word yes. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, right? But how can someone consent and they can't speak? They don't have the cognitive abilities to understand what is going on. And there's also a further question about disabilities in general, because we always talk about how people with disabilities deserve to lead a normal life. And I totally agree with that. They should have equality and they should be able to function in the world just as everyone else does. And they should leave their life with dignity. And so, does that also include the ability to engage in relations? I mean, who says that they really understand the implications? Who does? We don't know. I don't know. These are just, I guess, questions for you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, of course. And we already know that the society we live in, different people are granted different privileges and different opportunities. Would this have a different outcome if the person was a man? What y'all think? I think we already know the answer to that. We know a lot of times that perpetrators of S crimes that are women are looked at a lot differently than men. We know that because perpetrators can be a man or a woman. And sometimes I think people are still shocked that women do commit these crimes. It's very obvious, right? That also leads me to race. It does. You have this very unassuming, older white lady who comes in to be a savior to a Black family. And honestly, I feel like she thought that she was going to get away with that. I personally feel like she was not only in her mind having some type of relationship with this guy, but she was also going to use that relationship to further her career and her status in society. Now, let me cook. Let me tell you. She's a disabilities advocate, right? And she wants to make change, and she wants to be a leader and a change maker and a disruptor. She wants to say, people with disabilities need dignity too. People with disabilities need to make decisions about their reproduction, or they should be able to make decisions about their bodies and engaging in relations. Because, hey, they're human. They can do that too. I feel like she was going to go on a crusade and she was going to get her name out there, and she wanted to be godlike. She had a complex. I believe they even referred to her as a narcissist. I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's what I think about her. I'm always thinking somebody is like up to no good. I always have a conspiracy theory about someone. I really do. Because that's just the world we live in, especially with social media. People are always concocting things, and things are just not always what they seem to be. So, I don't know, y'all. The world is crazy. The world is wild. And this was a wild one. It was a very heartbreaking story with somewhat of an even more heartbreaking ending. But nevertheless, some very important questions arise out of it. I would love to hear your comments below. If you have any, leave them there for me. If you saw the movie, tell me what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you on the next one. Make sure you continue to spread kindness in a world full of hate. Bye-bye.